the field. Hollywood!
Let me think about that one.
77 yards. Whoa! Who is this kid?
Lester.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for Ryan Stewman. Thank you for this opportunity that we have to just record a conversation, talking about his life, talking about his journey, talking about his adversity, the things that he's learned, his wisdom. So we just ask Holy Spirit for you to fill this podcast studio right now. Come upon my friend Ryan. Just allow him to spill out wisdom from experience, from pain. So people that hear this don't have to experience that pain. They can just reach their next level just by hearing a word from you in a podcast or an Instagram live right now. So we thank you, we love you, and we bless this man in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I'll take that.
All right, man. So the guy that we're sitting here with is my good friend, Ryan Stewman, and I connected with him about, probably 3 years ago.
We met through Kent and Ed, I believe, right?
Yeah, so we connected through the DMs, and then from the DMs, I reached out to you when I thought I was going to move here, and it was right when you got in a really bad four-wheeler accident, and I was like, hey, I know you don't know me, but I'd love to come over to your house and meet you for the first time and pray for you. And you were like, yeah, man, that's great, dude. Thanks so much for the love. Maybe next time you come back here and I'm feeling better. But it's been cool because we've been able to kind of raise our families over this last year in the same church. And just to see your business grow, to see you grow, to see your marriage grow, man, it's awesome, man. So I'm just honored that I'm alongside of you, man, because I enjoy watching you grow, but I love watching you grow the people that are around you, man. So introduce yourself a little bit to people and tell them a little bit about what you're about.
Well, first of all, I appreciate you saying that. I really do. You know, that's the only church I ever been in, and I've been there for 17 or 18 years now. And on and off, you know, I've been real faithful for about the last 6 or 7, but on and off and move in and just excuses, you know, in all reality. But it really has changed my life. And what's funny is in 2019, at the end of 2019, my wife and I said every year at the end of the year in December, we get together. So in December, I broke my neck in September. Yeah. So December, I'm starting to move again. And we do our year-end planning. And typically we go to another country, I think, and do that. But that year, I think we stayed home because I still had a neck brace on.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, we got to figure out a way to get our friends that matter, the influencers, the people we care about, the people that we got to figure out a way to get them away from, like, you know, New York and DC and in California, and get them here in Frisco so they see what we've really got going on in this city. Right. And we got to find a way to get our friends here because it's a better place for them, you know. And what's crazy is, you know, the pandemic hits in March, and almost every one of my friends, you included, starts hitting me up saying, hey, man, what's it like in Texas right now? Hey, man, what's it like where you're at? And I told Amy, it's like, they're going to come, you know? And I bet you there's been 10 or 15 of my friends in the last 2 years that have relocated here, like yourself. It's been pretty amazing, you know, to see that come to fruition. But as far as myself, I am an entrepreneur and CEO of a company called Break Free Academy, where we run Apex, which you can see behind me, is one of the largest mastermind networks, experiences, whatever you want to call it, in existence. We have about 2,000 members, and it's really my job to not be the Ryan Stewman show, but to really lead a movement that's not based around me. I watched a lot of people over the years build a brand around themselves. You know, Tony Robbins is a great example. Cardone is a great example. They built a brand around them, and that's awesome for them. But as those guys are, you know, in their 60s at this point, I'm still in my 40s. I don't want to face a problem of who's going to become Ryan Stewman when I'm in my 60s. I wanted to create something that everybody that was a part of it meant something to it, right? So the way that I think that's made our program different from everybody else's, and it's kind of established me different from a lot of people in this space, is it's not the Ryan Stewman show over here. It's our show. You know, I put a lot of people that'll be on my stage at the event next month. A lot of them started on my stage before they were popular. Sean is a great example. You know, Fleischman was on my stage 3 years ago before, you know, the celebrity world knew about him, but not the outside world, you know, and it's just it's been cool to be the guy that's leading this thing, but leading it from, I would say, the middle, as opposed to, hey, look at me, I'm the guy. It's all about Ryan Stewman. I want people to be a part of Apex and say, hey, I can speak on the stage over here. Hey, I can coach the people. Hey, I have a specific talent that I can teach. I have a value that I can bring to the network, and I think because of that, it's really changed the trajectory of where a lot of these things go and made us different,
So for people that are listening either on Instagram Live right now or listening and watching on the podcast, everything that you said right now like sounds really impressive. And so they're like, man, this guy's got one of those fancy watches on. He's got his own HQ. He's got 2,000 members. He seems kind of humble because he's like, man, it's not even about me. But maybe a lot of people don't know where you were at, when you were 12. Maybe people don't know where you were at, like, I want to say about 12 years ago. I know that you've been coaching and in this mentorship business game for about 10 years. But previous to that, like, a lot of people don't know that, you had a different way of identifying yourself and a different flow to your day. And people kind of got to tell you a little bit more what to do with your life. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what I mean?
Well, I'm glad you asked. I like to start off with the what seemingly is happily ever after. It's like, hey,
I call it the Wikipedia page. Let me grab your attention with the abs, or the arms, or the Super Bowl. But I bet you probably didn't know this about me. Yeah. So what do people that are listening to this right now maybe not know about Ryan Stewman?
Well, I'm very good at making good decisions because in the present, because in the past I was very good at making bad decisions. And
some would call that wisdom.
Yeah, that's it. I learned, right? But at 7 years old, I was adopted, and by my stepdad. So my real dad left when I was like 4 or 5, and I was and it's my life is like Forrest Gump, man. It's like a wild series of just like historical events that have happened that like I was a part of, right? It's so weird to even say that, but you've been around, you've heard a lot of stories, and when I was young, my grandparents owned banks in small towns called savings and loans. They don't exist anymore, but back in the 80s, that was the way bankers in small towns did business. Bank of America didn't exist in small towns, or back then it was MBNA. They had these savings and loans. So my grandparents were bankers. They were wealthy, right? Mm-hmm. Well, John McCain was the president of the Resolution Trust Center, and they eventually crashed all of these savings and loans so his company could scoop all these small banks and their assets up for pennies on the dollar, right? Mm-hmm. And I know that because our banks got picked up. My grandma went to federal prison. We're in small towns, so she lied to the feds during the audit to help give the money back to the land back to the landowners and the farmers and stuff. Because in a small town, if you steal from small people that have thousands of acres of land, you just disappear. You know what I mean? It's like, shit, I don't know, coyotes got them, So it was that crazy. My grandma cooked the books to keep, not anything illegal for our family, but to help the other families. They end up giving her 6 months in federal prison. So I go, 4, 5, and 6 to having the greatest Christmases you could ever imagine. And all of a sudden I don't have a dad. My grandma's in prison. Like, we moved out of the town. I had to move to the big city from the country, like complete life change, right? So that was like life change number 1 for me. And looking back, like Keith always says, life lesson number 1 is just because it's good now doesn't mean it's going to be good for forever. And anything can be taken from you in an instant, So I get adopted, and I change my name from Ryan McCord to Ryan Stewman. And then the kids, they make fun of me. Dad doesn't love you. You got to change your name. Your family, they're so ashamed that they had blah, blah, blah. And then I hate school. Right.
Yeah. Right. So
then I become this problem kid in school, and by the time I was 13, I was my stepdad was pretty abusive, right? Both verbally and physically, and like my wrist is locked in place and doesn't move because I have a bar in it because he kicked me out of the window, or jumped out of the window as he was kicking me. However you want to explain it. Like when I was probably 14 or so. So. Just not the wasn't probably the worst, but definitely not the best. You know what I mean? And,
not the picture perfect father-son dynamic.
And the reason why I never got this fixed until it was too late was because when I did go back home a couple days later, they're like, well, if you go to the hospital, you tell them what we did, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, man, it's just a rough life. But anyway, he put me to work when I was like 8 years old, right? I'm a hyper kid, and he wanted me to get out of his way. So he put me to work at the car wash. By the time I'm 13, I'm selling car washes. So I'm making a couple $100 a week. I'm buying my own shoes. I'm mowing the yards and stuff like that. And I decided I really don't like school. And at that point, I'm like, man, the teachers really aren't making much more money than I am. So if I just went full time at 15 years old and worked full time, and my stepdad, he didn't care. Anyway, they knew I was going to be a colossal screw up anyhow, right? So I go to work there, and I meet a guy named Charles Barkwell. At the time, his name was just Chuck, but he's passed away now, so I don't mind saying his name. His name is Charles Barkwell. And this guy is like, he's got diamond earrings in, black gentleman, diamond earrings, always wearing, really nice clothes. Not like Gucci type of shit you would see the rappers and stuff these days, but like suit and tie. Look, I thought the dude was like a doctor or a dentist or a lawyer.
Well put together.
Politician, preacher, something like that. So he comes in and washes a bunch of nice cars. A couple months go by, and I'm working at Walnut Hill in Greenbow Avenue in Dallas, and at this car wash. And I said, hey, man, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do for a living? You got some amazing cars. I'm just this dumb, white kid from, the country at this point. And he's like, hey, man, you smoke weed? And I was like, why? Right? And he's like, well, if you want some, I can hook you up. And he was basically his way of saying, hey, I'm a drug dealer, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, here's my beeper number. Beep me with this code. So like I got off work and I beeped him, and I stopped over this house. And these dudes are like what we would know today as trapping, but I didn't know any of that stuff. These dudes have all sorts of drugs in there and tons of cash back there, and dudes with guns as they're like, I guess they had just got a shipment and stuff. It's like a kid from the country. I'm like, wow, this is how you make money. This is the stuff they're talking about in the movies. Like, this is like, drug lord stuff. Now looking back, it was probably 10 grand, and you know what I mean? But as a kid, that was like now I would be like,
more than you ever seen.
More than I'd ever seen at that time. And probably anybody since we left the banking industry had seen for a while too. Right. And so, he's like, hey man, you think you can move some of this? I was like, man, I know these kids up in Plano buy this weed and shit all day long. Right. And so they front me some pounds of weed, and I would go and sell it and bring them the money back like a good dog, and get going back and forth. Eventually, it's like, hey, man, you want to make real money, you sell them this Coke, right? And there's a bigger margin. You got to carry less of it, blah, blah, blah. They come back more often. I'm like, all right, that's how we make money. It's how we make money. So I never did the Coke, right? It was like, never saw anybody who was having a good time in my mind on it, right? Like being all skitsed out and stuff just didn't seem fun. But one night, a chick talked me into a prostitute in our reality. Girlfriend broke up with me. My friend called a hooker over. And we go back in the room together, and she talks me into doing a line. She probably not taught me in too much. I was drunk by the time she showed up. I did a line of Coke and had a heart attack, bro. Like laid out. Luckily for me, the fire station and ambulance and shit was like literally across the street from the apartments. Like it could one 1/100th of a mile away. Like literally all they had to do was jump the fence to get in there.
Wow.
And took me to the hospital, but I had drugs in my house. So when the ambulance showed up, saw the drugs, they called the police. The police came, and when I woke up in the hospital the next day from the overdose, they arrested me for like 7 grams of Coke, right? Which is like $200 worth, right? Turns out that's a felony 1. You could shoot somebody in the face, and it carries the same amount of time as $200 worth of cocaine. In the face, bro. You could like rape somebody and torture somebody, and it carries the same 5 to 99 as it does for having $200 worth of Coke. Now, what in the hell, right? Meanwhile, I didn't know that. Right. But I'm thinking you get caught with drugs, they probably let you go. That's what we see now. You know what I mean? Hell, the other day, some dude beat up Dave Chappelle on stage, or tried to beat up Dave Chappelle, had a gun and a knife. They didn't even prosecute him. But in my day, if you stole $50 from a gas station, you're taking an ass whooping from a police officer and going to jail.
Yeah, you're going to pay your price.
So, unfortunately, that's where I got to do. Right. So I end up pleading out to that a year or so later. And I go they told me if you'll plead guilty, it'll be on your record, but you'll only do like 90 days in the county jail, and then you'll go back home. And I thought, well, that's better than, being on 20 years probation and shit like that. Still be on probation today almost. You know what I mean? Like, good luck making it through 20 years. So, like, all right, I took the plea bargain for 2 years in prison. I'm thinking 60 to 90 days. I'm going to be out of the county jail. Oh, hell no. A week later, they sent me to this place called Beto 1, right? Well, first of all, I had to go through this little gurney place for a couple of weeks. They sent me across the street to this place called Beto 1, where there was 183 people killed within like a 9-month period of time. Like Aryan Brotherhood and the Bloods and the Crips, like everybody's riding. And I'm over here in the like short timer wing open. I don't get raped in the shower, bro. I'm not even kidding.
Right.
So like, you want to talk about like, I'm never selling drugs again. Like, I do not belong here. Like, you literally walk down the run as I weighed 135 pounds when they took me in there. I was 20 years old, 135 pounds. I've been out there on the streets. You know what I'm saying? There's dudes been locked up your size, like waiting for me to show up with commissary every week, man. Like, it was, thank God I never snitched on nobody. Thank God I never, did a lot of gambling and owed dope money on the streets or anything like that. So I got a lot of pass for having integrity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just being in reality. But
That's what it is.
The scariest shit that I've ever been in my life, right? And most people, when they go to prison, they go to like one prison, and you see in the movies like, hey, I'm going to sleep with you tonight or whatever, try to give a censored version for your people. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you see all that, fresh fish type shit. I do that 8 times, bro. 8 different prisons. They transferred me around for 2 years. I did the whole damn 2 years.
Wow.
Went from 60 days, 90 days, you'd be home, never leave the county, which was Collin County, which is a very nice facility, right? All things considered compared to these nightmarish houses of hate, right? Which is what they are. But I get out and I make a pledge to myself. I wasn't a religious person at the time, so and I was turned off by religion because in prison, this is the funniest thing. Everybody's religious, and they're praying for parole. You know what I mean? It's like, oh God, just give me parole. I won't rape anymore. You know what I mean? Like so to me, it was like really hypocritical, but like, was you loving God when you was out there on them streets? And so I'm not going to be in here pretending like I was all like, now all of a sudden I'm in trouble and I need you. That's not how I'm going to roll. I'm going to be authentic. I'm going to get myself out of this shit like I got myself into it. I'm not going to be a hypocrite in front of God like a lot of these other guys. That was just whether it's right or wrong, it's my rationalization. But I got out and I said, here's the thing. I don't know you, God, but I would never do anything in the dark that I wouldn't do in the middle of Times Square ever again. You won't see me. If I'm going to do drugs, and I'll tell the world I'll do drugs. If I'm going to steal, I'm going to tell the world I'm going to steal. And that's not in my character, so it'll never happen. And from that moment on, I just made a decision that I'm not going to do nothing that I wouldn't just tell everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to keep secrets anymore, and I'm not going to do drugs. I'm not going to sell drugs. I'm not going to, that's not my life anymore. And I got out, I went back to work for the car wash. And at the car wash, selling car washes. And I met another customer named Monica Hubbard, who's also passed away. And she says, every time I come in here, my goal, Steve, was to be the best freaking car wash guy on the planet, right? And I was at it. Just like you want to be the best NFL, I'm going to be the best car wash guy, right? And she comes in, she says, every time I come in here, you sell me some stuff. Then you wipe off my car, you vacuum it. She's like, does anybody else have a job here? Is this just what is your name? I'm like, my name's Ryan. I like point to the shirt, my name's Ryan. And she goes, I'd like to give you a job. I've been coming in here for about 6 months. I see you just work harder than everybody else combined. And I said, what do you do? She said, I own a mortgage company. I'd never heard that word in my life, ever. I said, what's that? She said, it's like a home loan. Oh, lady, man, I don't even have a credit card. I don't even have a bank account. I pay my rent in cash, She goes, I can teach you all that. I said, well, it's because I'm a felon. It's car wash life for me. That's why I'm just doing my part to be as good as I can at the car washes, because that's probably going to be the only way I'm going to make it. I just got out of prison about a year ago. I've been 2 years. And she said, what'd you go to prison for? And I said, drugs, ma'am. She goes, oh, hell, you'll be all right. There's probably somebody that maybe a customer. So she was being funny, right? So I quit that job. Monday, I showed up to this job, right? And I'm dressed like a car wash guy. Everybody's wearing banker stuff. So there was like, I stood out like, orange hat, green bill type shit, and that weekend, the first weekend. So I start work on Monday. That Saturday, I'm watching the Ohio State Michigan game at a friend of mine's house, and his parents had lived in this house for like 20 years. And I was like, hey man, you guys ever heard of a refinance? It's just a word I heard in the office, They're like, well, we have a bankruptcy. We can't do that. And I'm like, I think that you can. I remember hearing something this week, and they're like, don't you wash cars? Like, no, I'm like a mortgage guy now, but I don't know shit. But the lady that I work for is a genius. Let me put the two of you together. You talk and see if it works. So the next day, they call, they talk. 3 weeks later, I get a check for $8,000. during that time, the guy that mowed the yards for the car washes calls me, goes, hey man, you're not working the car wash anymore? I was like, nah, I'm a mortgage guy now. He goes, hell, I'm buying a $700,000 house. You want to finance it for me? So then I get another $23,000. So in like a month and a half of working this job, I have made more money than I would make it a year at the car wash, right? The next year in 2005, I made $770,000 working in that industry. And the cops thought I was selling dope and they kicked in the front door to my house and raided it.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
I got the IRS tax returns and everything. I'm like, man, you guys didn't pull 4506s before you ran up in here.
That doesn't happen though. People don't come from where you come from.
They seen a felon moving on up the neighborhood, but people don't.
It's an anomaly though. You must admit
yes.
It is an anomaly. So for them to like stereotype you,
yeah, and
kind of justified.
I'm working out of the house right before COVID, right? This is 2005.
There was a lot of red flags.
2005, and I got people to come. I own 30 houses, so I got people coming to pay rent, drive piece of crap houses because I own houses in the hood. Then I got realtors coming in Benzes to pick up checks. I got borrowers coming over in F-150s to fill out applications. So it looked like I probably was selling dope, you know. One day after they kicked in the house and I'm out on bond or whatever, I got a house in Rockwall, Texas. The tenant is not paying me rent and they filed bankruptcy, so I can't kick them out. So I'm looking for a way to get the cops in there or something, right? Like, are they doing drugs or something that I, as a property owner? So I go and I knock on all the neighbors' doors and none of them answer except for one. And when the dude answers, he pulls his gun out. It's the fucking cop that kicked in the door of my house and arrests me. He thinks I'm coming looking for his ass. And I'm like, no, I own that house. Oh, geez, I'm lucky I'm alive, right? Like, it's a whole
So did
thing.
he pull on you and everything?
But because of that, yes, because he looked through the people and saw it was fucking me.
And he knew it was you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like that, scared shitless. Then we get to talking and I'm like, man, you raided my house. You didn't find any drugs. You charged me for these stupid fucking guns, but I've been out long enough to own the guns, blah, blah. They end up dropping the charges, right? Like my lawyer went in and they end up dropping the charges and the ATF picked them up. So I had to fight the case twice. And this is like I said, Forrest Gump story. Beat the case, they dropped it, right? The feds pick it up a year later, so you think it's all done and over with. The ATF picks it up. You don't beat the feds until recently. They've lied so much nobody believes them now, but back then everybody still believed them. So you don't beat the feds. I get picked up. And they're going to give me 20 years for these guns, right? They're all legal guns. They're all registered to right people, all that. Like, but for some reason, the ATF says that under the Brady bill, it's just this whole fucking crazy thing, like weed in California, right? Like it's legal, but it's not legal federally. And anyway, so the feds basically pick me up, tell me they're going to give me 20 years. They give me a drug test. I passed the drug test, so they let me out on pretrial release. I'm out for like 2 years. During that time, my lawyer runs for district attorney in Dallas County. He gets elected. We helped him get elected. He gets elected. He cuts a favor. I end up going and doing 15 months in the federal prison. So I walked in federal prison, a millionaire that owned 30 houses, that was married, and just like the peak winning the Super Bowl of my life. And now I got to go
you check it all.
Now I got to go check into rehab. You know what I'm saying? For 15 months. 60 days after being in there, wife left me, sold the houses, ran off with some other dude, liquidated all my accounts.
60 days. 60
days, all it took, bro. We were together for 4 years. 60 days, all it took. When I got out 15 months later, I went to the halfway house with $25 to my name. They give you $50, I think, when you get out. And I spent some of it at the store and shit like that on the way there. But like, that was it. You know, like, what am I gonna do? I went from living in a mansion that the cops raided to now I got to move in with mom and dad, and I don't have a good relationship with them. So like that was some weird shit in itself, you know. Yeah. And so I knew two things though. I had been successful before, and I was willing to do whatever it took to be successful again. So I got back into the mortgage business. Took me a minute to get a job, but I got back in the mortgage business and got back on top, bro. Back within a year, I'm making $300,000 during a recession and all this shit. But then Obama passed this law called the Dodd-Frank Act. Said if you have a felon on your record, you can't write mortgages anymore. So I know selling drugs, washing cars, doing mortgages. Man, I'm not going to go back to selling drugs and washing cars, but I can't do mortgages anymore. So I literally don't know, you know, man. what I'm saying is like every time that things started to take off, man, there was a roadblock there, right? And every time that roadblock showed up, Steve, I'm like, man, why? I'm in church, I'm tithing. I'm talking like Ned Flanders over here. I don't have tattoos, any of this stuff at the time. I'm wearing khaki jeans. I'm like doing everything you're supposed to look like this cookie cutter gingerbread church going person. You know what I'm saying? But like, I'm going to fucking prison. I'm getting divorced. I'm going broke, living in a halfway house. Now I can't even do my damn job anymore. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, why you do this to me, God? I thought we're supposed to be home. I talk to you every day, and this is how you're going to do me, right? That's like the rationalization going on in my mind, right? So I go to have lunch with one of my friends. I'm like, man, I guess I'm getting kicked out of the mortgage business, bro. I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. I'm gonna ask the guy for a job. And this is what he said. He said, hey man, I bought these DVDs for like $8,000. You should watch them. I think you could learn something from them. This is the cheapest person I know. When he said $8,000 for DVDs, I like to shit myself. I'm like, this cheap, who is the salesman that sold him this, right? Like, yeah, I wanna watch these videos, right? So I watched this guy named Ryan Dice. And he's teaching you how to build, this is in 2010. He's teaching you how to build a website. So I did exactly like he showed. I built this website not knowing what the hell any of that stuff were. I just did what he showed, right? Trusted the process, got to the end result. There's a website selling an energy drink. In the middle of the night, somebody buys this energy drink like 2 weeks later. I call him. I wake up like 5 in the morning. I call him. It's like, hey man, thanks for buying energy drinks. Like, yo, bro, it's a little invasive. I was just looking for, but I knew then if I could do it once, I could do it 1,000,000 times. So I start really diving in on the internet. And in 2010, nobody was doing Facebook and social media. So I would say, hey, Steve, I'll run your Facebook for $100 a month. I'll make posts for you and all that stuff. I had like 70 clients, which taught me all this stuff about social media because I'm acting from different people. I became a good writer. Fast forward 14 years of doing that. 12 years of doing that. Like I said, we have one of the biggest networks in existence. I'm like, a lot of people say I'm one of the greatest writers out there in the social media world because of that process. But and that's still the short version, but I say that because now looking back, connecting those dots, God needed to get that woman out of my life. And the only way she was going to get out of my life is if he sent me to prison and forced her to leave. Right. God needed to get me out of the mortgage business where I'm never going to do what I'm doing right now. So he forced me to have to leave. This whole time while I'm bitching and complaining that God don't love me, he's like, here, you stupid ass. Let me put you back on the path that I built for you. Right. Let me show you where you're supposed to be. And the moment that in 2005, I'll never forget, the cops had raided my house. And Keith told me to read the book, Law of Success by Napoleon Hill. And so I read the book and I finished it. And I told my wife at the time, the one that left me, I said, hey, I'm gonna be like a speaker. This is my, I don't know why. And she's like, who would listen to you? Right? Like, you're a felon, you got the door kicked in. Who would listen to you? Oh, shit, I guess she's right. Went on about my business. But that was a glimpse into what I was supposed to be. And when I stepped into being that person, because there were more hurdles I had to hit, obviously, to get where I am. But when I stepped into that person, I can look back now and like every time he knows I'm hard-headed and I wouldn't have just left. I'm a loyal person. I wouldn't have just left Charles Barkwell and selling dope if they wouldn't have put me in jail. I wouldn't have left that woman if they wouldn't have put me in jail. I wouldn't have stopped doing mortgages if they wouldn't have taken my license from me. But finally, now that I've been goaded into the right position, I feel like, man, I couldn't be more blessed of a person. I live the life that people literally dream of. I have 4 amazing kids. I have a beautiful wife. I travel private jets everywhere. I have the coolest cars you could think of. And that's just the material. So I have the best friends, the best relationships, the network where I see people win. Like, being a part of Apex, our mission is we represent what winning looks like at all times. So imagine what it must feel like every day to be surrounded by 2,000 people that are dedicated to winning at all times, especially since a lot of them are like me. We used to be losers at all times, But the happy ending that everybody sees now was a very, very sad beginning, It's actually a very sad beginning, middle, and close to the end, so.
Yeah, and if you guys are here at the beginning of the Instagram Live and obviously the podcast, one of the prayers that we prayed was, that your experiences and your pain can be wisdom for other people. And there's and I hope I remember it correctly, but there's a quote by Seneca, which was a Stoic back in the day, and he says, wise people will learn from anyone and anything. Average people will learn from their own experiences, and stupid people won't learn at all because they already have all of the answers. So that's why I think podcasts, that's why I think mentorship, personal development, leadership, entrepreneurship, you can't do it alone. You always, the one theme that I'm hearing throughout all of this, this journey, and there's sometimes that, I've heard you speak where you really feel like the character of Joseph, that you've been through so many different trials and adversities, but looking back on it now you're realizing that God was actually shaping you and preparing you for a time that you were actually a person worth following. Because all of us want that influence right off the jump. Like right when you said, dude, I'm going to be a world-class speaker. If God would have given you the influence to do that at that point, you would have been a world-class speaker. But then what do you have to offer them? Yep. Because you can't change anybody's life. You can't change somebody's life just in the time that you speak to them. You and I both know, like, we're speakers. So when you speak, you grab people's attention and then you offer them food for thought to think differently, but they have to do the work in order to change their life. And so, a lot of us are after that influence, and then we'll be responsible with the influence if somebody gives it to us, and then we'll build relationship with them. But the way that God wants us to do it is we go out and we'll build relationship with people. The way that I've chosen to pursue you, and I've chosen to be the initiator. Haven't had to do it yet, but I've chosen to be the apologizer should it happen. And the point is I'm in this to build relationship with you, and I'll build responsible. It's been 3 years. I'm responsible with our relationship. And for that reason, like when I call, you answer the phone, you want to know why? Because I have influence in your life, because we've built relationship in that way. And I think when you do life and you do relationship that way, it's not hard for me to close my eyes and picture who's really going to be in my life 10 years from now, because I'm so clear on what I value and I'm so clear on who I want to surround myself with. And if they are men and women of integrity, then they're going to be on the same path that I'm going to be on in 10 years because they value what I value. And as long as you value growth, family, and your faith, we're going to be together for a long time, man. So that was kind of my soapbox on what I'm hearing, from your life. It's really powerful. And I know that you've got a really exciting event coming up here in about 3 weeks, and I'm going to release this podcast as soon as I can. But for those of you guys that are watching on Instagram Live, you can actually go buy tickets right now. I'm going to release this podcast as soon as I can. And the reason is he rented out an arena for an event called the $1 Million Mastermind. He's already sold 1,900 tickets, so he's only got a couple hundred tickets left. So I'm actually going to pass you the mic and let you tell them a little bit more about what the $1 Million Mastermind is, who it would be for, what they can expect, and maybe a teaser of who some of the speakers are going to be.
Yeah, so we've been doing this event since 2017, and I am the events guy. I do roughly 50 events a year. 36 of them will be our own events at Break Free Academy, and the rest will be speaking gigs that I've done. So I don't know too many people that are as prolific at doing that as I am. And it's crazy because we started with 5 people in 2012, and now we're going to have 2,500 at this one. And last year we had 1,200. Year before that 8. So it's a steady growth pattern. The difference, I think, between this event and everybody else's events is I don't really have an agenda there, in a sense of I'm not raising money. There's not going to be a sales pitch every person. Each individual speaker, I've paid them their money that they require to speak, so that they're not going to pitch their stuff. But it's a place that the reason why we keep growing is when people buy tickets to the $1 Million Mastermind, they go there and they say, that's not what I expected at all. I expected a pitch fest and everybody having their hand out. And really that was a value-driven, great people, networking. Because here's the thing about me is I can put 10 or 15 people on my stage, but I have 2,500, 3,000 friends with blue checks and businesses and that are famous people like you that a lot of those 500, 600 of them have bought tickets to this event that are going to be sitting in the seat. So you could very well come to my event and see Ed Milet on stage and then be sitting next to maybe somebody else you follow, like Steve Weatherford, sitting in the seat next to you. You know what I mean? That's just he spoke last year at our event. And that's just the cool thing is the people who did speak at the previous events come back and attend this one because they're like, hey man, I enjoy going to Ryan's stuff. So this year we have Ed Milet speaking there. We have E.T., Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher. We have Jessie Lee Ward, who's one of my favorite people. She's the top network marketing person in existence as far as I know right now. She's just killing it in network marketing. We have Rebecca Zung, who is on TV, and she has a huge YouTube channel about how to deal with narcissists and everything else, which we could all learn a little bit for personally and for the people we deal with, right?
Jesus is still working on it, man.
That's right. Then we got Sean Whalen, and but the biggest thing that I'm most excited about is I got Tom Brady coming to be the main speaker for
say
day
that
3.
again. He ain't retired yet.
Yeah, I got Tom Brady, who's someone who's active. I mentor a lot of guys that actively play football right now. He's not one of them, but those guys don't do anything but live football. So the fact that we got him while he's still not retired and coming to really pour into us, because here was my idea behind that. It's like if at Apex, we represent what winning looks like at all times. That guy represents what winning looks like at all times. When you see him, when you see him, you think, hey, those guys win, and that's the atmosphere that I'm creating. So I'm creating a place where maybe Tom will give you some inspirational stuff, but then there's going to be somebody like Sean who will come in and give you step by step on how he built $1 million, multi-million-dollar a month e-com business. And there'll be Ed who will tell you how he used leadership and built it all the way into being one of the wealthiest people alive. There'll be, just amazing people there. And there's a ton more, Dan Fleischman and Kurt Lennington. There's a ton more amazing speakers, but I want this to be not so much like come look at the people on stage. It's more like come learn from the people on stage and then connect with the people in the audience, because of my core values and who I am, I attract a very specific type of person, a very no bullshit person, a person that's dedicated to winning, a person that doesn't make excuses. So if those are words that you would use to describe yourself, you're going to find your tribe. You're going to find probably your new best friend sitting in the audience at that event. So
yeah,
and to me, that alone is worth the cost of admission, which is $100 or $200, whatever it is, the seats that are left right now. So
yeah, and one thing just to kind of sum up what Ryan was saying is 3 things that are really important to me. And like if I'm going to spend a lot of money according to other people. And, for me, a couple of years ago, it would be a lot of money also. But if I ever really stretch where I'm like, man, can I really afford this? It's always for learning, relationships, or experiences, because those are things that people can never take away from you, like shoes and watches and cars and even homes. I get it, but those are things you can touch, and some of those things can be investments. But nobody can ever take wisdom away from you. Nobody can ever take your relationships from you, and nobody can ever take a moment away from you. And so the reason that I mentioned that is, and he's right in saying there's going to be some incredible speakers, but there's just going to be a lot of people that really support Ryan, believe in Ryan, and really want to come for their own experience as well. And like you said, man, a lot of those people are going to have people, that have blue checks by their name. So I'm going to be there in attendance. Ryan doesn't realize this yet, but somebody's going to cancel, and I'm going to speak at that event for you as well. But click the link in Ryan's bio. You're smiling. It's the truth too.
So I got to talk to him at 1:30. Hopefully he's not watching, but I did an internal vote of whether it was you or Keith that we were going to bring in Sunday morning for church. And the only reason why we never got to that was because that was the only time Tom could show up. And I thought if we have a concert with
what's going to happen?
Yeah. So somebody would have to at this point, but that's very possible.
Yeah.
So, but that was the plan.
I'm not saying I'm not like guessing that. Like I believe I'm going to be speaking.
That was the plan, was to do Sunday church with you. And then we ended up.
It'll still happen. Yeah. Maybe I'll warm up the crowd for Tom.
Maybe.
Not too many people that have beat him,
Yeah.
That's cool, man. But I'll land the plane in saying learning, relationships, and experience. No, as I'm sitting here, I feel like God told me I'm going to speak. So, and it wasn't even like an intention or anything in that moment. That's why I just shared it with you. But learning, relationships, and experiences. I've learned a lot by being Ryan's friend. I hope he's learned things from me. I really enjoy building relationships. So if you're somebody who values learning and growing, this might be an event for you. If you're a 9-to-5 entrepreneur and you just don't know, maybe I'm not ready to hop in the water with these sharks, there's a lot of people that are going to be at this event because they want to make that jump. So, 9-to-5 is fine, but there's going to be a lot of people that are grinding it from 5 to 9 to make that dream work and to be able to launch themselves into entrepreneurship. And then lastly, man, if you're looking for a unique experience where under one roof, you'll probably never find all of these people, I would be the person to say that it will happen at this event. And just so you guys know, everybody that purchases tickets from my podcast or from this Instagram Live, I get no dollars from it. And if I speak at Ryan's event, just so he knows, like, I don't take $1. Like the thing that I have to bring to that stage is going to be a gift to everybody. And it's not because of me. It's going to be because of he who is in me and the message that I have to tell. So anyway, I'll land the plane. Is there anything else that you wanted to share? I do have 2 kind of unique questions I would love to pose to you in closing.
Let's go.
The first one would be, because you have lived through a lot of different experiences that I would say, eradicate a lot of fears that people have, that you're like, yeah, I've already been through that. But what's one thing that scares you?
If I'm being honest,
Be honest with this.
I fly in these private jets all the time, and I have to entertain people while we're on them. So I got to hold it together. But underneath, man, I am like it doesn't make sense to me that we're up 50,000, 40,000 feet in the air doing 500 miles an hour. It's like, it's just that I can't wrap my head around. So it is literally something I struggle with. And I tell you that because that's probably not what you were really looking for. You were probably looking for some emotional thing. But
No, I was
I
just
asked
looking
myself,
for whatever you're scared of.
but this is most people's dream. I mean, Cade's flying around with me every week. You know, like this is most people's dream, to be able to have their own pilots, their own thing, their own jet that they've got, and a big one too. It's not a small one, but it scares me. And so I was coming back from vacation in Mexico 2 weeks ago on the jet. And we had a little turbulence, and just for like a split second, but it hit hard enough to where the things on the chair dropped, right? It was just wind blowing by, right? Again, I rationalize and know all the reasons, but it's like, man, I felt like my heart fell down to the bottom of my foot, right? So when I got home, you know, and I got my wife and a couple friends on there that were on vacation with us, so I got to like act like no big deal, you know, just pull it back together and like, you know, didn't just crap myself in front of everybody on the jet, right? And I realized when I got home and back on ground, I was like, why am I so scared? These things don't crash. Literally, the jet that I fly, Falcon 900, there's been one accident in the history of them making them for 30 years, right? They're the safest jets out there. I've got the best pilots. They're the guy that owns the jet that I lease from is a billionaire. He's got the best pilots that you could imagine. Like, what am I scared of? And I realized that I'm scared of, if it ended today, I'm not done. It's not the jet. It's not the fast car or whatever it is that like that adrenaline that I'm scared.
What would done be? What would done be for like Ryan Stewman?
I have 4 core values and a mission that I'm like serious about. Like if you walk around the corner, it's written everywhere in here, and he could tell you them. But the mission, my personal mission, like I said, for Apex, it's represent winning at all times. But my personal mission is to help as many people as possible become the best version, the greatest version of themselves. And I haven't helped enough people yet. But the problem, that the thing I love about that mission the most is there's not a limit. So I'm not done till I'm done, you know, but I know that I haven't done enough yet.
You think you'll ever feel like, yeah, I've done enough?
I hope not, because then I'll stop, and I don't want to stop. I made that mission to where a lot of people think.
But what if you feel like you've done enough and you still have the like self-mastery and self-leadership ability to say, I've done enough, I just choose to do more because it's who I am?
I don't know.
Because then it would be a choice. Then you're not like pulled by something. You're actually choosing it.
But I think I chose this.
Yeah.
You know.
No, you're not wrong. I'm just posing
I really, you know, I really feel like that's my calling. Yeah. You know, and I remember 3 years ago, Keith and I were talking. We were in Colorado, and he said, you know, I'm not the word police, but, you know, if there was one thing that I would suggest is maybe, you know, changing how you talk a little bit, right? And he was just like mentoring me a little bit, you know, probably something that spoke to him. But I explained, and I still believe this, I get messages every day of people that go to church now because of me, that they would have never believed that God would take somebody like them. But then they see me and they're like, if this guy who walks, talks, and carries them this way and like literally loves Jesus and God to death, you know what I mean? Like I can be that guy too, that I think regular people couldn't do. So a part of helping people become the greatest version of themselves, that's a part of it. You know what I mean? You don't know this, but you look around that church that we go to, there's 30 or 40 of my guys and girls from Apex sitting in there. You know what I mean? They don't all gather around us and stuff. They're respectful, but they're in there, you know, and that wouldn't have been in there otherwise. And the ones that don't live here, they're in Irwin's church or Stephen Furtick's church or wherever, right? It's just, it's part of it. So I feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, you know, and I never felt more, and it's not I'm tricking people into going to church. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just like,
it's called influence. You're influencing
I'm helping people become better.
You're influencing them through sharing your life. And for that reason, they're saying, hey, I want to live a life like he's living. And part of how you're living is making church a part of it.
Yep.
It's powerful.
Yep.
Last question. What's the hardest thing for you to do?
Well, since I don't allow myself to make excuses, the hardest thing is I have to be disciplined in that. And what I mean is we're going to go to Boston in a couple of days. And probably Steve Aoki and a bunch of cool people will be there, and it'll be the party of a century. And I can't get drunk there. I'm a leader. I can't, you know, I'm just like anybody else. I get drunk and slur and say dumb shit. Last time I drank, I almost got in a fight with some kid, right? Like, It's like, I can't do that. You know what I mean? Like, I can't carry myself that way. I can't go to, if they throw an after party at the club, I don't do that, right? And that's the hardest part about being me is I want to do that stuff. You know what I mean? But I don't think that represents what winning looks like, going to the club and getting drunk and partying all night. I think winners are sleeping in the gym in the morning. I don't think that's what Tom Brady would do. I don't think when you were trying to win a Super Bowl, that's what you were doing. You know what I mean?
I don't do that now. Like, my lifestyle hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
what I'm hearing you say,
it's hard to be true to who I say I am. That's the hardest part. It's hard to be true to say I'm the guy that doesn't cheat, doesn't steal, doesn't do drugs, doesn't party, doesn't I got to be the strong guy at all times. It's almost to the point where even when I go to a doctor and they're like, hey, what's wrong with you? It's like, I hate to admit it weakness because I got to be that stone person for the people that need me to be, you know, but I'm human. So that is hard, you know, but it's a hard that I've chosen because I've also been the other side of things, and that's way harder.
Yeah. Know? Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is leading yourself to a certain standard that people say they live to, but I'm actually truly trying to live this out.
Trying to be the example.
Yeah, not a lot of men live by standards and rules that govern them in the shadows. You know, it's very powerful. All right, guys. Well, I sure appreciate you tuning in for the show. Again, where do they go? We haven't told them where they go to get tickets because we want to see them in 3 weeks. So
you can click the link in my bio, or you can go to MDM2022.com. MDM, which is $1 Million Mastermind, MDM2022.com, or you just click the link in my bio. But look, we're not kidding. There's like a couple hundred tickets left because we can sell 2,500 tickets and we've got 1,900 gone. I probably gave 200 out to my close friends and people around the city and stuff. So we literally got 100, 150 or so left. And Brady's supposed to make the announcement today, so we'll probably be sold out this evening. I would guess he's supposed to share it on his social media. So what I'm saying is, if you're thinking about coming, don't think for too long because you might not be able to come.
Yeah, right on. So if we're sold out when this podcast comes out, then you guys are just going to have to check the replay. And I'm sure there actually is going to be a replay, yes?
Yeah, so probably we'll end up doing a live stream at some point, probably the replay. We'll record it, so there'll be replays for sale, I would imagine.
Yeah. So anyway, man, but
the replays ain't in the room. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you ain't gonna get that energy and that emotion. Yep. Hardcore closer, Ryan Stewman. Anything else that you want to share?
You know, last thing is like shameless promotion. You know, follow me here on Instagram and on Facebook. It's Real Ryan Stewman on Facebook. Both sites I have a blue check. Just so you know, it's me. I will never DM you. So anybody that sends you DMs, me and my wife, we will never do that shit. But here's the reason why I say follow me is read my stuff. Don't just look at the pictures of the jets and cars. Like, read the captions, because the pictures are there for your attention, but the captions are there for inspiration and wisdom. And I do my best to really pour into you guys here on Instagram and on Facebook through my post. And I am a consistent machine. Like, every day on Facebook, every morning, I'm making sure that I'm sharing through experience. So don't miss out on that, because a lot of people like it, and I know that you'll like it too. And I put a lot of effort into that, and I know that it'll be a blessing for you. So follow me on Instagram and Facebook, and make sure you read my post. That's it, man. Ryan Stewman, love you, man. Yeah, love you too. All right, thanks for having me on. We'll see you in what
What stadium is it in?
It is in Comerica Stadium. in Frisco.
Comerica. Let's go, man. We'll see you guys in Comerica in a couple of weeks. Cheers.